Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here. Locked On Nationals podcast is a late night edition. Is the 9th of June, 2022. Matt Weyrich is here from NBC Sports Washington. We are here to break down Stephen Strasburg's 2022 debut. He is back from surgery, which he got last year. Had a rough night, but there was some positives in there. We'll have our thoughts about it, some thoughts from Dave Martinez as well. All that and more coming up on the day's show.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here. Joining us, it is Matt Weyrich. And Matt, we usually start off by, I usually say the position in the standings the Nationals are, to the record, to the whole thing. We'll save that because that's going to pertain to a conversation with a trade deadline that we're going to have coming up. So we'll save the state of things as we always do it. The real big news here is Stephen Strasburg. He's back. He made his first start back in the big leagues tonight. It's his first one. What was it since? I'm trying to think. Last year was
373 days, June 1st.
Yeah, June 1st. I knew it was like late May, early June. So yeah, it was 373 days. He is back, and we'll give folks the final line on him tonight. It was an up and down night for him. I actually think there was some positive, as much as there can be. 4 2/3, 8 hits, 7 runs that were earned, 5 Ks on 83 pitches. So your just overall thoughts, just seeing him back on the mound, I thought it was – because here's the thing. There's not a whole lot to get excited about this year. So I think it was just nice for Nationals fans to have something to be excited about, right? Like, this guy's just back. It was nice to see him on the mound again, I think was my first thought.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if you ask anybody in the Nationals organization if Stephen Strasburg pitching today was a win, they'd say yes. It really did not matter what the results were. It would have been nice if he could have gone out there and had a nice outing. I'm sure his fantasy managers would have been very pleased had he done so. But the results weren't there. But overall, I think that the Nationals have to be kind of happy with what they saw from him. As you mentioned, he was kind of up and down there. Came out, the Marlins scored 3 runs in the first inning. Then he really settled down through the second through the fourth inning, didn't allow a single hit. He racked up all 5 of his strikeouts over that time. He induced a double play. Looked like he was really settling in there. And then the wheels just kind of fell off for him, with Jesus Sanchez hitting a 2-run homer to end his night, not allowing him to get out of the 5th as he gave up 4 runs in that frame to put 7 on the day. But overall, I thought that the curveball and the changeup both showed a lot of movement, which is something that, I was really looking for from him during his rehab starts. It looked like his off-speed pitches were working just as well as they had before, which was important because Strasburg's velocity had declined in recent years. Even going into 2019, his fastball velo was on his way down. Then it really dropped 2020, 2021. It was again pretty low today, but David Martinez said after the game that he actually expects him to get back up to that 93, 94 range this season. It's more something that as he kind of gets settled into a routine, he thinks that velo will come back. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. But overall, I think that despite the results, the Nationals have to be happy with seeing Strasburg back out there.
Yeah, I think Nationals as an organization, Nationals fan. I mean, look, they've got so much invested in the guy, and not just from a monetary standpoint, right? I mean, this guy is, what he means to this franchise. Like, it's crazy to me to think that what year did they draft him? I always forget what year it was.
It was 09 because Harper.
09. So we're in year 13. And I remember him I remember watching him pitch in college. As a really young pup watching him pitch in college, thinking, wow, because remember the thing about him in college is, oh my God, this guy's throwing 101 miles an hour.
And it was a strikeout game at one point.
Right. And it was funny seeing him tonight, and look, I think he's we've seen him go through one evolution, but there's a chance of velocity, it doesn't stick at 94, right? Forever, right? There's a chance it actually doesn't happen. And to think it's now the best case for him is 94. I mean, this guy's going to have to go through what all pitchers have to do, right? Learn. You have to learn how to – a lot of guys have to go through that – unless you're Max Scherzer, you're an alien. You have to learn that process of all right, my stuff is not this level anymore. And I think he's got the secondary stuff, obviously, to do it. for him, it's just, I think it's going to take a long time to. I'm not going to doubt him and saying he can't get back to who he was. I just think it's going to be a process of like, all right, what can my body handle? What can my arm handle at the big league level every 5 days? And how can I be most effective? I think he'll get back, but to me, this is going to be a slow burn, just like the recovery process was, right? We knew that after they kind of pushed it and tried to get him back there in 21, it felt like they needed to take everything so slowly, and they have. And I think that the recovery for him in terms of quality is going to be a slow one too. So I think he can do it, but I think there's a learning curve even for a guy. I brought up the age, like for a guy who's been around the pro baseball for 13 years now.
Yeah, I mean, he's signed to a deal that's going to keep him in DC for another 5 seasons. I mean, that's going to take him late into his 30s. There's, like you said, there's really no way you can expect him to maintain that 94-mile-an-hour velocity, given that it was already declining in the first place. It's probably going to continue to go down, even if he is able to kind of regain that 2019 speed. But that's what the great pitchers do, and the fact that he wants to pitch into his 30s, shows that he is willing to try, and willing to adapt his game. He did it back in 2019. He showed that he can rely on more off-speed pitches, that changeup can really be a filthy weapon for him, just as much as that spike curveball is. I mean, that curveball was what really made him such an elite prospect. And don't get me wrong, it's probably his highest graded pitch throughout his career. But I think that changeup has been really underrated for him. I think it's a dangerous weapon, one of the best changeups in baseball when he's at his best. And I think that he locates well enough. He can do what guys like Justin Verlander and Adam Wainwright have done in elongating their careers by kind of becoming these still strikeout artists, but guys who really have to rely on their location. Strasburg can be that precise. We've seen him do it before, and I think that it's something we can continue to see. It's certainly not yet time to write him off, even with these injuries he's had the last few years. He just has to stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was a World Series MVP, right? It's like, you don't lose that part of you that allows you to go into big situations and get the job, or at least, think you get the job done. Let's talk about the start itself. So I thought it was Jazz Chisholm, man. Like, that was, hey, welcome back, right?
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm going to bunt one right down the third baseline. And I mean, a picture perfect bunt, right? I thought Franco could have given that one the old college try. I enjoyed watching him back up on the ball that was clearly not going to go anywhere near the foul line. That thing at about 2 or 3 feet there, and he's backing up. And I just thought, damn, I felt so bad for Strasburg there, because that was like he's obviously in his 30s, so he knows how this thing works. But I did think that was funny, kind of how that worked. And that first inning really felt like a reintroduction, right? I think with about 16 pitches, he had a chance to get out of it. And then it kind of snowballed on him just a little bit.
Yeah, gave up a double, a couple of hard hit balls. Obviously just Jazz running all over the place wasn't helping things for him. But overall, that was a situation where he could have gotten out of it. Like you said, one more pitch and he's out of there without giving up a single run. Ultimately, he does kind of unravel a bit. And, early in his career, first innings were a thing for Strasburg, where he would really struggle in that first frame and then settle in. So this is nothing new that we've seen from him before. He's kind of has to learn to pitch again. I mean,
Yeah.
he hasn't pitched in over a year against major league competition. We're going to have to see him settle into a routine again, what we haven't really seen him do. Even back when he was pitching back in 2021, he missed some starts here and there, wasn't really like pitching every 5 days. So it's honestly probably been 3 years since Strasburg was really pitching every 5 days on a consistent basis. So as long as he can settle in and basically get back to the routine that he used to have, and get used to feeling sore again and feeling what his body is like, one day after a start, 2 days after a start, knowing when to press, when not to press, that velo that wasn't there today, maybe it's a good thing that he wasn't rearing back and throwing as hard as he could, because he's probably not prepared for how sore he's going to feel tomorrow, or how sore he's going to feel tonight. And not pushing as hard as he possibly could on day one is probably a smarter idea, as opposed to going all out, and then all of a sudden he's going back on the injured list with arm fatigue in 2 weeks. The Nationals want him to stay in the rotation. That's why he took so long to come back this year. They took their time. He was originally only expected to miss a couple of weeks to start the year, and it ended up turning out to be 2 months. But the most important thing for the Nationals was once he's back, he's back. And so
Right.
honestly, that one of the most successful things you could say about this season at the end of the year when you look back is that Stephen Strasburg didn't return to the injured list. So if that happens, I think that the Nationals will be very pleased.
Yeah. You know, he is like the freight train type starter. Like once he gets going downhill, it's usually really good. And actually, I think we saw a little bit of that tonight, right? I mean, that second, that third, and that fourth were really strong. Those were really, really strong innings for him. I thought so. You saw a little bit of the old Strasburg, right? The sometimes rough starts, the really good in the middle, and then they got to him there. What was it in the? I'm trying to remember now. It was the sixth. Yeah, yeah. So he's out there, yeah, right in the fifth, and the Marlins put up the 4 spot there. I will say this, like the one thing that you and I have talked about ad nauseum, one thing we've seen a lot this year, high pitch counts in the fourth, in the fifth. So I think once again, those middle innings were really strong. He was, getting ground balls, that kind of stuff. Um, that is something the Nationals desperately need. And also, I don't think we're going to see him get rocked in every fifth inning that he pitches in. I don't think that's going to be a thing. So I think that's one point, Matt, where I want to just say, you're going to get your thoughts on that. Like, this is something the Nationals desperately need. I know it's one start, but we can't be doing the Gio Gonzalez 100 pitches in 5 innings. He's always kind of my target guy I go to for that example. I feel like he did it a whole lot. But, the Eric Feyty's the world, nibbling, kind of getting that pitch count up. This is positive, the fact that he was in a great position pitch number wise. Now, look, I don't know, they weren't going to take him too deep into the game, but like, he could have kept going out there, pitch wise. It wasn't like he was hitting some hard cap.
No, I remember when the season began, somebody asked me, who do I think is going to be the Cy Young of the Nationals this year? And my answer was Patrick Corbin, and not because I thought that Corbin would be the best pitcher on the Nationals. Au contraire, I definitely did not, and that's
Right.
proving to be the case. But I did think that Corbin would lead the Nationals in innings this year, and I think that that is incredibly valuable for a rotation that saw Yohan Adon and Josiah Gray, 2 very young pitchers, handling basically the first quarter of the season, 2 spots of the rotation, with guys like Anibal Sanchez and Joe Ross dealing with injury going into the year. Of course, Ross never actually returned. Same with Strasburg, dealing with injury. Corbin being there to pitch every 5 days and give the Nationals 5 or 6 innings was incredibly valuable because there aren't a lot of arms that are going to pick things up when Corbin is going 3, and then Gray is only going 4 2/3. Strasburg, can't go 5. Something like that, where all of a sudden those start to add up. The bullpen gets really taxed, and then the runs just start to add up for this team. And that's how 3-game losing streaks become 6, 7, 8-game losing streaks. The Nationals need a stopper. They need an ace, somebody who can at least give the bullpen a break every 5th day. And Corbin, to his credit, has actually been going relatively deep into games this year. But now with Strasburg back, if he can consistently go 6 or 7, never mind the results that he could have, in those games, I think that's incredibly valuable for the Nationals as well. Something that they're really going to look for him to do. Of course, they're going to be cautious with him given his injury history. They're not going to try to push him too much, but they say he is completely ramped up to go, 100 plus pitches every 5 days. So that should be the expectation once he has, gotten comfortable, acclimated himself, and gotten a few starts under his belt.
All right, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at rockauto.com. Go to rockauto.com today. The best prices on parts for your car or truck. So, Matt, also want to kind of get your thoughts on what you heard from Dave Martinez. Anything about Strasburg? I think it should also be noted, too, his next 2 starts will be at home, right? The Nationals have a gigantic homestand coming up. I believe it is going to be, I'm carrying the number now, 11 straight home games. They got 3 against Milwaukee, 3 against Atlanta, and then the old 5-gamer, a little throwback, right, to the 2021 season, the 5-gamer against the Phillies. So we're going to see Stephen Strasburg twice. Now he's going to have to face Atlanta, who's been playing better as of late, and also a red-hot Philadelphia team right now. So two pretty tough assignments, but next two starts for him will be at home, which is important to note. So also, what did you hear from Dave Martinez about Strasburg? What were his thoughts?
Yeah, going back to the fastballs, while the velo wasn't what, maybe we would have been hoping to see from him in the start, Martinez did note that fastballs had a lot of movement on them. In fact, the word he used was oomph at the end of those fastballs, whether it was some cutting action, whether it was his two seamers sliding across the plane. The fastballs had movement. And if you are going to be a finesse pitcher, if you are going to be somebody who relies on location, you can't just throw straight fastballs, especially if they're going to be 90, 91, 92 miles an hour. These hitters are going to catch up to it. So you got to have that deception. Strasburg knows how to throw from similar arm slots and have different pitches. That's been part of his game for a long time. But if your fastball can move, your fastball can, even by itself still miss bats, which honestly it did not. He didn't get a single swing and miss, I believe, on a fastball in this game. So that's something that, is we're going to have to see improve for sure. If he can get swings and misses on that fastball and then set up his breaking balls, I think he can still be a very effective pitcher. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some non-Stephen Strasburg related stuff. So this week on the Junkies, it was Mike Rizzo basically saying, like, there's a lot of time left, but if things go the way they are, we're going to be cautious sellers. I'll tell you what, Matt. I don't know if right now is the time to be a cautious seller, right? Like, you literally have nothing to lose. I mean, Juan Soto is the only thing on the team that's like of extreme value right now that you have to lose. And I think you tweeted it out the other day, the number of guys who are on expiring deals. It is, I mean, quite impressive how many guys the Nationals have. And just position players, like you think Franco, Bell, Hernandez, Adrianza. I mean, all of those guys, in my opinion, are on the block and kind of assets people would covet after, kind of want. I think my mind first goes to Josh Bell, right? This is a guy, Josh Bell, with the way he's hit this year, with the way he does hit, the fact that he's a switch hitter. He would provide the Nationals, in my opinion, the best possible haul. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't any player who's not on an expiring contract who would bring that much more. Eric Feyty still has a couple of years to control.
Right.
I think that he still stands to be moved at the deadline, A, because he's out of options, and B, because the Nationals are probably going to want to start bringing up those pitching prospects at some point, namely Cade Cavalli and Cole Henry, and there might just not be room for Feyty in the rotation at a certain point. So I think he's on the block as well. But as far as straight value for what can be brought back, I think that Bell and Cruz are the clear-cut 1-2 guys, with Bell, who has been the more consistent hitter this season, and also just being younger, probably standing to gain the most.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Nelson Cruz. Obviously he doesn't play in the infield, but obviously, there's now everybody's got DH, so you don't have to worry about that. I think Fetty's it's interesting because the Nationals, the idea of them trading pitching is like, well, you like kind of cringe at it. You're like, they can barely get 5 healthy guys out there, right? I mean, Juan Adon just got sent down, and Evan Lee is going to hold down a spot in the rotation right now. And so kind of they've got guys they want to bring up, like the idea, I think I almost kind of flinch at it, but it's probably smart, right? Because everybody does need pitching. And so, Eric Fetty, for as up and his last few performances has not been good, but for as up and down his performances have been, like he is an asset, right? He is a back end guy. He is a guy who can also be a bullpen guy for a for a playoff team, and that could get you something a little bit more than you thought. I mean, we've seen Lane Thomas was the haul for John Lester, so I think that you're right. I mean, I think he is a surprising asset in a way most fans might not think. You agree with that statement?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you don't see him, on the list of players who are on expiring deals. So you'd think, okay, maybe Eric Fetty is somebody that they could keep and continue to have in the rotation. But really, does Fetty fit into the Nationals' long-term plans? I don't really see it. I mean, there's no Joe Ross, no Austin Voth to compete for rotation spots with him, but there are new names that are going to be coming up. Jackson Tetriol down in AAA this year has had a very nice season. He's not on the 40-man roster. If you want to bring him up, you're going to have to drop someone from the 40-man unless you trade somebody. So there's another guy that could take Feyty's spot. You've got young guys, and this is the time. With the Nationals flirting with the worst record in baseball, this is the time to be bringing up guys and seeing what they have. And, Feyty, to his credit, has pitched very well. He's honestly been probably the most consistent pitcher in the Nationals rotation this year, which, is probably not saying too much, but still in the month of May, he was very effective until that final start he had. I believe it was against the Dodgers when he really got lit up. Overall, he was pretty solid in that month. And if he can carry that over into June, have another strong month here, I don't see any reason why a team wouldn't be interested in, bringing him in to be their number 4, number 5 starter. Not even a guy who maybe you expect to be in your playoff rotation, but somebody to just give you starts down the stretch. And then, like you said, maybe come out of the bullpen.
Also, I think there are a lot of bullpen guys they could trade off here. I mean, they've got some value in this bullpen. Once again, they are an overworked group. I think we thought this would happen. This is particularly, in my opinion, very overworked group. But I think we're starting to see it. With some of these guys. Carl Edwards Jr. This is a guy who's obviously got some big league, a lot of big league experience. Wasn't AAA, so he's concerned, but he has been lights out ever since that first Mets game. That didn't go very well for him. And they've got guys, Paulo Espino. I know he hasn't pitched many high leverage innings, but that's a guy that some team could look at and say, hey, this guy, has been pretty good for them. And then obviously you got guys like Erasmo Ramirez and Victor Arano. I mean, I think the Nationals' bullpen arms are going to be sought after as well. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And you've also got Steve Cishek, who's a free
Right.
agent after this year and has closing experience in the past. Sean Doolittle is hoping to make a return at some point. If he can get back a couple of weeks before.
Sucks. He had such a strong start, man.
Yeah, it does suck. But if he's able to come back and pitch the same way, I don't see any reason, especially being a lefty, any reason why the Nats wouldn't at least entertain some offers for him. Now, with his prior relationship with the team and, where he is in his career, he may not want to be traded, but, that's certainly something that the Nationals will have to sort out by the deadline. But yeah, like you said, these bullpen arms, Carl Edwards Jr. has been awesome. I think that while he has actually 2 years of control left because he was brought up literally 2 days too late to qualify for free agency this offseason, the Nationals actually hold control over him next year, which may convince them to keep him around. Maybe he becomes the closer after they trade off guys. Maybe Tanner Rainey is on the block. He has had a couple of blown saves in the last few weeks. Certainly hasn't been super consistent this year, but that's
great stuff, man.
Yeah, that fastball velo is very impressive for sure, and I'm sure there are a team or two out there that feels like they could harness it. So, while he has several years of control left as well, I feel like he might be on the block. So, like you said earlier, I mean, anyone not named Juan Soto, Keibert Ruiz, and Josiah Gray is probably available on some varying degree in trade talks this deadline. The Nationals. Rizzo says they're going to be, careful sellers or cautious sellers or whatever he said.
Why would you?
I honestly expect him to be just as aggressive as he was last year. As they want to turn this ship around quickly. They want to win soon, and you can't waste time by keeping guys. If there's a deal out there for a young player that you think might have some upside, you're probably going to do it at this point of their reboot.
Right. I mean, there's no reason to let Josh Bell hit free agency. If you want him back, and you and I have talked about this a bunch, sign him. Do it now. Get that thing done. But don't let him walk. Don't get nothing for that. I wanted to mention 21-38 the Nationals, 17 games back at the first place New York Mets. They're 9-18 home, 12-20 on the road, minus 91 run differential. They've lost 3 straight, 3-7 in their last 10. I will say you and I had the conversation about whose jersey do you buy right now if you're a Nats fan. I like Keibert Ruiz, right? I think this we can do this now. Those
jerseys weren't even stocked until about a month or so into the season. So finally,
he has been awesome to watch, especially behind the plate. And look, there's still some learning. There's still some balls that get by him. I think there's actually one tonight that probably should stop and get
Yeah,
by
and
him.
he
But
had a catcher's interference
right,
yesterday, and he picked up an error on another play the day before. I mean, he's still having rookie errors, young player mistakes, but you can see very clearly that this skill set is elite.
and he's and like once again, you and I have mentioned this a bunch, but the ability to run a staff, right? The ability to run a staff is the reason why catchers are getting drafted so high right now as it is. And then
Well,
also Josiah Gray's bounced back too really well. It's like he has
oh yeah,
really been so
last
good.
three
The last
starts,
three starts have
sub
been
2 ERA.
awesome. Yeah.
And I want to say just on K-Bear to close the book there, my take right now, and I don't know if this is a hot take, it might just be a lukewarm take, but given his relative youth and lack of national pedigree, it might be a hot take nationally. I think that K-Bear Ruiz, as of right now, absolutely deserves to be an all-star on the NL All-Star team this year. Wilson Contreras should be the starter for the National League. He's been the best catcher in baseball thus far this year, but I can't name a single other catcher who should deserve to be holding that number 2 spot behind Contreras over K-Bear. And that includes JT Realmuto, includes Tyler Stevenson, who's having a nice season for the Reds. It includes Dalton Varsho, who plays center field and catcher for the Diamondbacks. My pick would be K-Bear Ruiz for that number 2 catching spot.
Yeah, he's been, it's good to see a guy at his age playing this well, and I definitely think he deserves some consideration for that. It's also nice to see Josiah Gray bounce back. Like, it's really good to see that. And some Nationals fans, I think, can feel a bit better about the two guys. Like, because, and look, Josiah is, we've mentioned this a bunch, but he's learning. They're both learning. They're both clearly learning. And so that's kind of the story right here. Matt, you working on anything right now?
I'm working on K-Bit Ruiz potentially being an all-star post. So
Nice.
Stay tuned for that tomorrow, which I guess will be today for all of you listeners. So yeah, definitely come check that out. I'm over at NBCSportsWashington.com and on Twitter at @ByMattWeyrich.
All right, Matt. Appreciate your time as always, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.